Hello everyone, Pineaaronapple here with the latest episode of Doctor Who, part 1 of the finale, The Legend of Ruby Sunday, and boy, do we have a lot to unpack here. An episode that brings the left narrative strands together, except for the memory TARDIS that is, and I'm still a little shocked the episode managed to predict an audience theory and successfully subvert it, but once again, like the Toymaker reveal, they let slip a little too much detail. And some clever clocks figured it out. We even mentioned the big villain they reveal in a previous theorising session, and they give mention to a theory us Sarah Jane fans had. We've had a few subpar or divisive showings this season, but this episode fits well as a part 1 to a finale. Usually I don't gel well with New Who part 1s. To me, every now and then they end up feeling just like setup, not really satisfying, making 1 week of Doctor Who viewing feel kinda shitty, waiting for the story to finish the next. Although Russell finales have had a pretty good track record with part 1s, Bad Wolf, Stolen Earth, Army of Ghosts, all bring something to explore. The Game Station, the Earthwide characters, and Torchwood 1. And this episode does that well of having enough content beyond setting up the finale, and doing a good job at that too, to keep you invested the whole time, not just waiting for the end to occur so you can be hyped for next week. To see if that sticks the landing, but that is for next week to see. For now, let's see if this part 1 stands on its own, and how it stands on its own, while still propping us up for next week. The episode opens with Unit getting ready for 15 as he swans in, spinning the TARDIS into HQ met by Rose Noble, a character who is far more tolerable this episode, her dialogue not geared to insult a whole gender or take potshots at the Doctor for the sake of it. Yeah, as time goes on, the nostalgia stops obfuscating how frustratingly some things were written in the Starbeast. She was written less of a real person and more of a strange mouthpiece for dialogue that could have easily been redone to keep the message and come across as natural without the frustration. A point that I made in my review of the Starbeast, which you can see quite easily as I just released a compilation video of my reviews of the 60th anniversary episodes and the Church on Ruby Road. So if you haven't seen those original reviews, why not check out that video after this one. 15 asks about 14, and we see the new Unit team as Ruby is introduced to them. Kate, having been a long-standing character, Ibrahim, the Vlinks, and Rose from the 60th, and new characters, Maurice Gibbons, fun child prodigy with the cutest segue, apparently from an asteroid. The genius part, not the segue. Played by Lenny Rush, and Harriet, played by Genesis Lanier. It's a nice little scene where they all get some screen time, and 15 reveals why they're here. 15 has finally noticed the woman too many times, showing off her appearances, including 2 new cool designs as a slugma and a griffin. But Unit is already ahead of him, Morris and Kate with the shit-eating grin waiting for the penny to drop. We see the woman's current identity, Susan Triad, first mentioned in The Giggle, and with the reveal of S Triad Tech, the Doctor makes the same deductions the audience has done the past 7 weeks. But once again, Unit have noticed the whole TARDIS thing themselves, keeping tabs as Morris is pretty sure it's a trap. And it's nice to see Unit on the ball for once, considering their last appearances in the Disney era have been so lackluster. Mind-controlled, smacked around and lasered while being mind-controlled, and then mind-controlled again.
The name is TARDIS technology.
Well, obviously. Thank you.
Even I got that.
Ruby notices she's called Susan, paying off the Devil's Chord, and leaving us with a pretty good intro into the title sequence, as even if this isn't our Susan, it means the threat is big and clever enough to exploit this part of the Doctor's history. We get a rundown on who Susan Triad is and why Unit was onto her, saying that they're on top of any evil genius with alien software except the obvious, about which Morris then mentions a him. I'm not too sure who they're referring to, but I'd assume the Master due to the organisation's history. But since the last time they ran into the Master it was Missy, that's a little confusing. So, who knows? Morris tells us that Susan is clean, while 15 has to give Ruby the rundown on regeneration, meaning he'll only know if it's Susan if he meets her face to face. As we've heard before, they should be able to notice who the other is once they meet, although it almost never works that way. And Morris is pretty sure that the probability of a trap is 95%. A nice running line of dialogue that gets paid off later quite well. We see that the broadcast is a test, to be properly broadcast later, as Mel is hidden in the media department, getting unit information, and it turns out Susan is just kind of a lovely person.
She's so lovely, she's so lovely.
And pretty down to earth as we see her and Mel talking, a hint to the reveal as she asks Mel to call her Sue. 15 mentions that since they have a mystery woman, we should discuss the other mystery woman, calling out Ruby like he's giving her a birthday surprise.
Ruby Sunday!
Oh, you're gonna warm me. It's amazing, you look gorgeous. Oh, it's also
The other woman being her mother. We get a small rundown of the important points of Church on Ruby Road, Morris matching my reaction as the girls just start fucking talking about Davina McCall again. It's a weird unnecessary scene that feels more at home in an MCU or DC Joss Whedon movie than it does in Doctor Who. It's great that we have this ensemble cast, but the dialogue could be a little better when you want cute moments of interaction. As it is, this sidestep felt a bit strange. Morris thinks that both women that we don't know things about could be the same woman, while 15 tells us he doesn't want to head back to Ruby Road, already having been there, and too much going on like the snow thing to park the TARDIS there again. Harriet realises there could have been CCTV footage near the church, and Ruby reveals that she has a tape of what went on that night. That probably could have used a mention in Church on Ruby Road, as here, it kinda feels like Russell pulled this plot point out of his arse.
Out of my house and never come here again with this!
Another strange detail is that the camera was 66 metres away, almost 73 yards. Morris thinks they can sharpen the image on the tape, so Ruby and Rose, not to be confused with an actress I never enjoy, are escorted by Ibrahim back home. And I don't know if it's her heels, but Yasmin Finney is a fucking giant here. I swear she wasn't this tall in the 60th, or do you think Ruby and 15 are just that short? Rose mentions a place called Catford, a real place, but I think it's quite funny that the last place it was mentioned in Doctor Who was in the novelisation of Rose. Meanwhile, Mel uses the most conspicuous device to shake hands with Susan, while Susan gives us a rundown of her life in the same way John Smith used to do under the Chameleon Arch. Although I'm not sure if it's like that, some sort of hint to Susan Triad not being a real personality, or if it's just Russell's lazy writing. Carla returns and has a nice scene retrieving the tape with Ruby, strangely saying the episode title, and she isn't the only one who says it this episode. It's a strange episode title considering Ruby herself takes a bit of a back seat, past the whole time window thing. Rose needs to get a different coat. Seriously, she looks like she's about to flash someone. Coats like that, and in that colour, never look good closed. Castiel always had the good sense to keep it open, so it never looked like that angel was about to flash us with his divine light. Carla decides to come to Unit Tower, getting Mrs. Flood to look after Cherry while they're gone, the radio flickering as she enters, and her scaring Cherry once the others leave.
He wakes no more.
You better not hurt her, Flood. If Cherry doesn't get out of this unscathed, I will cause a riot.
And I will descend.
And this is where the tension starts building. With a nice shot, Kate talks to 15 about the brig and asks about Susan. 15 saying that he has Susan, but hasn't had her kids yet. Which is weird because it was Russell's error that cemented in New Who that the Doctor was a father. So while you can justify it as he had kids but not Susan's parent, the audience shouldn't have to think that up to save Russell's continuity errors. 15 says he won't go back to see Susan, afraid he'll ruin her. A justifiable answer considering what happened the last time he ran into her.
Why didn't you do the universe a favour and jump right into that time warp yourself? Huh? Because then, just about then, I might be prepared to even entertain the remotest possibility of I can't even bring myself to say that. Get out of my sight.
Doctor,
Just go! Go!
It's a lovely scene between Kate and the Doctor, and Morris updates us to a 96% chance of a trap. And Mel comes in, 15 and her getting a nice little reunion. Her updating us that Susan is totally human. Kate correct in guessing that she may be a chrysalis. She's human for now, but will be evil later. Kate also refuses to let Carla in, so 15 lets her in with a great reaction from Kate.
Yeah, but it's Carla. Come on.
Carla Sunday. Access granted.
Right. Fine, thanks.
It's also nice to see another colour of screwdriver. I'm really digging the yellow colour 15's got this episode. 15 asks Kate if they have a time window, knowing full well they do, giving Kate another good reaction. And we head down to the time window, mostly controlled by Morris. And the set is quite good, like a modern day Star Trek holodeck. Which may be a thing, but considering the last Star Trek I actually watched was Voyager, I have no idea if they look like that now. 15 quite literally laughs at Unit, thinking the design is shoddy compared to what he's used to, which is a good comedy bit. And we meet internal security, Colonel Winston Chidoze. The only other guy that will be in there with them, and he's pretty nice, having some things in common with Ruby, so he's totally doomed to die. 15 reckons the data on the VHS is enough extra detail to give them a good look at what happened on Ruby Road. We see the VHS is pretty shitty, Carla finally making it in as they power up. 15 and Ruby alone in the time window, except for the Colonel of course, while Mel keeps Carla cool. 15 and Ruby have a nice little talk, the emotions and snow seeming to help the time window along, shocking everyone, giving us some nice cinematography, and a nice line from Morris.
That's impossible.
I'll tell you what's impossible. Haven't turned it on yet.
The effects of the time window starting are pretty great as the perspective shifts, like a holographic version of the volume. Morris is being cheeky again and we hear Carol of the Bells start, as 15 recaps us what happened that night. The woman seems to be purposefully shadowed to not allow us or Ruby to see her face, only Carla getting the briefest look to see her crying. And Carla then speaking out to tell the woman that Ruby is safe and loved. It's a great idea, pulled off well by Michelle Greenidge. 15 has a line that probably sets up Tales of the TARDIS.
That TARDIS is almost solid. If time is memory and memory is time, then what is the memory of a time machine?
And Ruby gets to have a nice emotional scene with the hooded figure before she starts pointing. The Colonel aiming his gun and heading in the direction of the finger, seeing nothing, but going behind the TARDIS in such a way it's obvious something bad will happen. Seriously, that could have been so much better. 15 tries to figure it out, but Mel points out the woman is leaving, the figure disappearing, and everyone feeling awkward as Ruby cries. 15 leaves in the past, but a great black and red shadow monster appears, and it looks pretty good, really intimidating. The Colonel has been engulfed, but with enough prodding, they hear his voice, spouting off really creepy speeches. Morris does a good job of getting us afraid.
It's off the scale. That thing is hot, it's cold, it's radioactive, it's dead, it's everything. I don't know.
And for some reason, Carla thinks it's called The Beast, which, you know, makes me think of...
Son of the great beast, cast out before time, chained in rock and imprisoned beneath the rift. What?
But that was a bit of a misdirect, just a strange line from Carla. The Colonel claims he's in hell, telling us quite clearly this is the thing that awaits, going to a crescendo with the time window exploding, impressively cutting into the viewing window. And all that is left in the wake of the shadow is the Colonel, reduced to sand. And with the Doctor apologising, Kate just gives him this look and wow! The way Gemma Redgrave gets the character across in just a glare is why I love having Kate around so much. She's like, I know it's not your fault my employee's dead, but I'm pissed now, and I'm trying not to lash out. She gets even more desperate to keep her people alive later. And after the way the Toymaker utterly wrecked them last time, it's understandable. 15 decides to go with Mel to the Triad filming, and takes his anger out on a poor elevator. And Mel, being the one to get him off his ass after his pity party, makes a lot of sense. Six's best companions, Mel, Constance and Evelyn, are the ones who can put him in his place when need be. And while Mel didn't really get that characterization on TV, while travelling with him except for making him exercise and drink carrot juice, after her time with Glitz, seen in The Giggle and in expanded media like A Life in Crime, this makes sense for a character to do after all those many years. According to Kate, the being was so strong it got burned into the VHS itself, only able to be scanned properly when reversed later. 15 now gets the chance to meet Susan, who he doesn't seem to think is our Susan. But she won't be stopped going on to broadcast, and this scene is great. You really get to see why they hired her apart from her name being Susan Twist. When she offhandedly brings up her sleeplessness and 15 starts bringing up her appearances, you see the look on her face. It's fantastic as she gets scared and makes her way onto the stage.
Do you dream about being an ambulance?
This
is an ambulance!
And back at unit, they run the tape backwards and see the TARDIS within the shadow, there for a second time. And we hear the TARDIS groan again, a thing it's been doing since it landed in Wild Blue Yonder. I suppose Donna's coffee was enough to allow the thing to hitch on board. Pretty clever hinting, as the TARDIS also made these noises in The Devil's Schord and Rogue. Many people like me rightly predicting the TARDIS would play a part in the finale. Morris also gets to pay off his lines from before here.
Probability of a trap, 99% and rising. Except the trap is here.
They scan the TARDIS, now showing that the thing is here now, and evacuate the area, but 15 is too curious to leave. Susan bumbles onto stage, doing a little dance for some reason, and the tonal change is a bit off-putting, going from danger to silly dancing to danger, leading Ruby to kick Carla out while the Vlinx scans the entity. Shit starts going wrong, the TARDIS getting sicker and Unit's power going out, and a creepy voice taking Susan over, as she starts having a bit of a freak-out. 15 and Kate order Ruby to the time window, as Kate announces herself to the entity, but Harriet starts chanting, very creepily. It's written really well, telling us the entity has seduced the vessel, but whether it means it has control of the TARDIS or Susan is up for debate. She continues insulting the Doctor, and we get her reveal. Her name is Harriet Arbinger. But whether she is Maestro's child, Harbinger, or if this entity has its own child, Harbinger, is unknown. But it's a pretty good reveal. Susan and the teleprompter get worse as the Master's theme starts playing for some reason, while Ruby and the Unit soldier get shut into the time window by some other force as it remembers Christmas Eve. Kate orders Ibrahim away, refusing to let her people near the danger, and we get a good mention of the gods as Susan falls to her knees. Seriously, a mention of Maestro, the Toymaker, the Trickster, the Mara, and more? The name dropping cool on its own, but also gearing us well for a similar level threat. The shadow reveals itself and claims itself the mother, father, and other of them all, which may be a nice unintentional reference to the Time Lord founders, Rassilon, Omega, and the Other. The creature reveals itself as the god of all gods, Set, Seth, and Sutekh.
You mean Sutekh is still alive?
The glitching on the screen and the teleprompter very creepy, and the CGI beast, along with what looks like makeup and CG on Harbinger and Susan, is very well done, and creepy as well. We hear Gabriel Wolf talk as Sutekh again, which is awesome, and quoting the original Sutekh story, it all culminating in a pretty epic and good-looking finale. Ruby's mum approaching her, and the Doctor so shocked it looks like he's deep-throating Ghost Dick. Seriously, Ncuti has been decent this episode, but needs to work on his shocked face. It looks ridiculous. And that is how this week's episode ends. And yeah, it was pretty good. Like I said, there are ways for pre-finales to fail, and just be the boring part one you have to get through every watch. But we have enough character interactions, great acting, and the moments in the time window to make this both a good time in its own right, and a good build-up for the finale. Even if it does more better as a lead-up than on its own. But that's what I expected. The whole ending scene is grandiose and looks great on a set, direction, and effects level. Susan looking surprisingly chilling, and the CGI Sutekh looking great in both forms. It's great to have Gabriel Wolf back. He's such a good voice for the character, the God of Gods, who influenced humanity so much they built a religion around him. Or at least that's how I remember his story, being one of the Osirans. But his power was supposed to be so great, it makes sense that he could be retconned into the God of Death, and perhaps created the Osirans in his image? Perhaps Part 2 or Big Finish may touch upon how that works. But it's been hinted at from the start with all these colours in the promo material, hinting to that rainbow time tunnel I remember from Pyramids of Mars. Although I am a little disappointed that they don't make the distinction between Death and the God of Death. One is a dog man, the other is a hot chick. Keep up with your wilderness lore, Russell. A strange through line considering Death's sister, Time, took 13's form to speak to her at the end of Flux. Ruby was pretty good here, you'd hope so since she's the emotional crux, but I still think if we had gotten more episodes the payoff would be felt better. And Carla is great for most of the time, even if the way she's written and shot in the story can feel awkward or half-baked at points. And 15 has the same problems in performance as usual, but at least he didn't cry 3 times. They're saving the tears for the finale. The surrounding cast was great as well on the whole. Rose didn't get any brain-dead lines, except for her, Ruby, and Kate talking about Davina McCall for some reason. Kate was good as well, getting great emotional moments, but also a few funny or more down-to-earth moments she's rarely gotten since her arrival in The Power of Three. Morris was the new character I loved, although it's strange that each of the latest scientific advisors had a, not disability per se, but Osgood needed her inhaler, Shirley her wheelchair, and Morris his Segway. I don't know. The Mrs. Flood and Cherry Sunday scene was probably the only standout odd moment when nothing really progresses. Cherry is seemingly in danger and all Mrs. Flood did was indicate some bad shit's coming. It felt a little out of place since I'm not sure we're getting her payoff next episode. So in conclusion, looking at the past rankings, I'll have to give The Legend of Ruby Sunday by Russell T Davies, part 1 of the series finale, a solid 7.5. I'd give it more, but it's inherently half a story. So while there are great moments and the ending was amazing, I can't rate it too high, as the real meat will be in the next week's episode. But if that one's as good as this, I think it's going to be a solid finale. Even if I can't justify raising the score as an episode, if I was rating it for what it is, half an episode, a lead-up, as a lead-up, I'd give it between an 8 and 9, but I'm rating it as a 7.5 on the same mental criteria as the past episodes. Thank you everybody for watching my review of The Legend of Ruby Sunday. Next week we'll be coming back with Empire of Death. Please like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish, and consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, ring the notification bell so you're told every single time that I make an upload. If you've forgotten, like I said before, I've just compiled my reviews of the 60th anniversary episodes and the Christmas special, so if you want to, go check out that video. And to the rest of you, I will see you in the next review. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.